Hey folks, big announcement. I am now doing in-person readings in New York City at Earth Angel Crystal. It's just one subway stop from Manhattan. If you're in the New York City area and want a mediumship reading or a card reading with me, you now have a place to see me in person. For more information, go to juanfranciscospirit.com/readings. You'll find everything you need to know on my website to set up your appointment. I can't wait to meet you in person. Why am I not seeing signs from the other side? This may be a question you're asking yourself, and in this episode, I'm going to go through 3 possible reasons you're not noticing signs from your loved ones or from your spirit team. In this episode, I went live on Instagram to get questions from the audience. So you'll hear me interacting with them and also interacting with you, the podcast listener. This is a new thing I tried, and I think I might try it again. But you let me know what you think of it. You'll hear it all here on Third Eyesight. My name is Juan Francisco, and I'm a psychic medium and tarot card reader. I've always been curious about the supernatural, the paranormal, and psychic abilities, and I'm here to share my stories and interview folks who want to share their own stories with us. Let's get to it. All right, we are live on the Third Eyesight podcast. So I'm trying something different today where I am recording my podcast as usual with my recording suite and the video, but I'm also going live on Instagram because for this podcast episode, which is about reasons you may not be seeing signs from your loved ones, I want to get some questions from folks on Instagram. Hey, Queen of Glam Tarot, and I see Joanne. Hello, everybody. So you will be featured on this week's podcast on Wednesday. This is going to be a recorded podcast episode that I am joining together with Instagram Live at this very moment to then publish on Wednesday. So for folks on YouTube who are watching this, I'm looking down at my iPad on the Instagram Live, and then I'm looking back up to you, Instagram folks, looking up at my camera that's recording the YouTube video version of the podcast. So let's talk about this. Reasons you may not be seeing signs from your loved ones. There are 3 things I'm going to cover in this episode. And as I am talking, I want folks on Instagram to ask questions and I'll answer them. I'll pick questions as I'm doing the podcast episode and I'll just voice them on the episode. So I won't stop for questions at the end. I'm going to answer the questions as we are doing the episode. So number one reason, or the first reason I think that we are not seeing signs or noticing signs from our loved ones on the other side, I think we're too focused on a specific type of sign. So for example, I want to see a pink elephant, an actual live pink elephant, an elephant painted pink. Let's say in a week from the day that you ask for that pink elephant sign, you see a pink elephant on television, in a cartoon, a children's cartoon on Nickelodeon, on Disney Channel, whatever it is. And you don't really think too much of it because you are not actually seeing a pink elephant in front of you, in front of your very eyes. A sign that you ask for can come in different formats. It doesn't have to be an actual live elephant. Or let's say you want to see a Ferrari. You may just see a Ferrari on the street. That could happen. But what if you see a Ferrari car commercial, which I don't know if there are Ferrari car commercials very often on TV. I haven't seen a Ferrari car commercial on television, cable, whatever. But what if you see a Ferrari in a TV commercial, or you hear somebody mention the Ferrari on a TV show, like a sitcom, and the word Ferrari just pops up? Is that a sign? I believe those are also signs from your loved ones. So when you ask for a sign from your loved ones or from your spirit team, it's important to be open to the different ways those signs can show up. It may not be a live animal if you are asking for a fox. It could be a fox on a cartoon, a fox that is on an emblem or a crest of some sort. Maybe it's a family crest that you see somewhere. Maybe it's the head of a fox engraved into stone somewhere. Recently, something that's been happening to me that I haven't asked for this sign, but I'm going through a moment in my journey, a new level in my healing journey in this phase of my life. And I've been seeing hearts on the sidewalk. So the first time I saw and noticed a heart, it was a water drop, like water droplets that looked like a heart on the sidewalk. And I took a picture of it and I actually posted it on my Instagram story recently. A week or two ago, I'm walking the dog and I see a pink heart drawn into the sidewalk. And I haven't noticed that pink heart before. I think it's something that somebody newly drew recently. To me, those are my signs. I don't know if maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe I'm daydreaming about these things, but I think those are signs. What are the odds that I see a heart formed by a water droplets on the sidewalk, and a week later I see a heart drawn into the sidewalk? And for me, those are signs. If you don't believe those are my signs or signs for me, it's your prerogative to believe that. But for me, I feel that is a sign. Now, if I asked to see a heart, like if I asked Spirit, okay, I'm seeing hearts now, Spirit, can you show me an actual human heart? Drawings of the actual human heart, the anatomical drawings. I think it's not unfair for me to ask of that, but I think it also narrows it down so much. And I don't think there's anything wrong with telling Spirit, that's a great sign, let's try this. I think when it comes from a place of curiosity, a sense of play and lightheartedness, I think that's the right intention to ask for signs from. But when we get that sign and we think it's not signy enough, or we want it to be a real elephant in front of our eyes at the zoo, or I don't know, maybe one day an elephant escapes the zoo and that's our sign. We see it running down the street, running down Broadway. That is pretty unrealistic. It's like asking, you live 30 stories up in a building and you want to see a mouse. Now, mice are less likely to go up 30 stories of a building and live in a space. They're usually towards the bottom of a building. So when you ask for a sign, I think it's important to be realistic but hopeful. It's okay to aim for something interesting or out of the ordinary. But you want to make sure that Spirit really dedicates a lot of energy to physically manifesting these signs for us. It's not that it's impossible for Spirit or that it's really hard. It takes effort and energy. So you want to be realistic with what's possible. I see Lisa on Instagram says, I get dimes from my dad, also rainbows when there is no rain. And that's beautiful. Cash and change is a very common sign that people ask for and that people get. So like pennies from heaven. In my family, when we see pennies, we think of my mom's mom, my grandma. And look, cash is everywhere. Coins are everywhere. But because they're everywhere, that is an easy way for Spirit to express themselves through those signs because they're easy to find. But what matters is not so much the penny itself. What matters is when you see the penny, what do you feel? So when Lisa sees a dime on the ground, her dad comes to mind. That's even more important than the dime itself. So that's what you have to trust when you are looking for these signs or asking for them, is when you see something and something changes in you, or you get this, maybe it's something you didn't ask for. Maybe you just see something random and you just think of your mom. You think of your dad. You think of your brother. You think of your child. Listen to that inner voice that tells you there's something different about this, and I'm thinking about my son. I'm thinking about my brother. I'm thinking about my sister. And then remember what you saw and experienced and ask for more of that. Or notice when those things keep coming up. Is there a pattern? Is this the way that your loved one is trying to speak to you, even if you didn't ask for that sign? Spirit will give us what we need, not always what we want. So Spirit will listen to the signs that we request and we ask for, but maybe they'll find a clever way to show that sign that you didn't expect, or they'll send another sign that you would never have thought to ask about. Queen of Glam Tarot says, I remember reading as I was working with angels that they communicate in very, I think he meant to say subtle. He said subtle. I wrote the word subtle, but I think he means subtle ways. Lyrics, words anywhere, etc. Yes, song lyrics are a huge sign for many people. So I told this story recently to somebody. A friend of mine, her friend had passed. Very young man, and his death really shocked me. I had only known him or met him for 10 minutes of my life, but knowing that he passed at such a young age and I had met this person and he died in a very tragic way really shocked me and threw me for a loop for a couple weeks. She and I are on a road trip in Washington, D.C., and we're playing a song by Tame Impala that I had heard many, many times. It's The Less I Know, the Better. That's the name of the song. Excuse me. And in the song, the line is, she was holding hands with Trevor. When she heard that line, and I never noticed that line, she said, "Oh my God, did it just say Trevor?" And that was his name. I thought, oh my gosh, yeah, I think he's here with us. I think he was communicating to us through that song. She had never heard that song before. So there was a reason we were listening to that song together, and I had listened to that song many times and never noticed that line. Joanne says, when my daughter was moving into her house, a penny literally fell from the second floor to the living room, so knew my mom was there. That's amazing. She was like knocking on the door there, metaphorically, with that penny. That's something. The other day I was at Earth Angel Crystal, and Daisy, the owner, was asking me if I could draw something like an advertisement or some way to direct people to the store on the sidewalk in front of the staircase that leads up to the store. And as she's down at the bottom of the stairs looking up at me talking, I see behind her this pigeon walk by, look at her, and then look back straight ahead and kept walking. And I laughed because it was so funny. It was like a meme. And she said, "Oh, that's the sign. We're going to draw it there. That's where they're saying you got to draw it." And I go, "Okay, I'll draw it." And when I finished drawing the advertisement on the sidewalk with chalk, a pigeon was on the drawing and was interacting with it. Now, maybe there were seeds, maybe there was food that I didn't see that it was trying to eat, but I thought, you know what are the odds? She called it angel pigeon. Maybe that was a sign. I took it as a sign, and it felt very good. Number 2 reason that you may not be feeling or seeing signs from your loved ones has to do with faith. Maybe you are seeing the signs, and they are signs, but you're not believing that they're signs. You're not believing that it's real. How many times have we seen that meme or that joke on social media? I need a signier sign. So maybe we just need to develop a little more faith. And it's not easy. Listen, we're human. We want proof. As human beings, we want proof. I still sometimes consider myself a skeptical believer because I am a psychic medium. I believe in the supernatural. I believe that there is energy after we pass. And yet I still want proof. I still want to, like, if someone says a place is haunted, I want to go see for myself that it's haunted. Maybe. Depends on the stories that they're telling about the place. But I want to experience it for myself. And I think that's just a very human quality to have. Now, when we get those signs and we don't believe them, it's because we want something to be perfected there. Or we think that what we're seeing is not strong enough. Instead of just, I think it's important to approach this process of asking for and then experiencing signs. Approach it with a sense of openness. And then when we get those signs, gratitude. And I don't mean to sound patronizing. I think that, and I'm going to get to this in point number 3. I think when we come from a place of feeling like we really need a sign to feel okay, I think that can sometimes, this gets tricky, but depending on our state of mind, we may not be able to interpret a sign the right way or even notice the signs because we're so in our head about it. So that's where we have to get out of our head and more into our hearts and have that faith and that openness. Because faith is really a matter of the heart and the soul, not really of the logical brain. None of this stuff may seem logical to many people. Being a psychic medium or connecting with the deceased may not be logical to some people. The idea that someone can come back after they have passed to greet their loved ones or to move things in a house may not seem logical to people based on our culture. And that's the other thing. We have to remember that so much of what I'm talking about here has a lot to do with the culture that we grow up in. So that's the other thing too. Maybe there's a sign that is coming up in your life that you got to do some more research about. But usually spirit will give you signs in your language or within your frame of reference. But maybe you learn something new from seeing a new kind of sign. Maybe a symbol keeps coming up. You don't know what that symbol is. You see it here on the internet. For some reason, it's popping up on Instagram for you. For some reason, it's popping up on Google, or you're seeing it pop up in random places in videos or in a bookstore. And then you look up the sign and it means something that really resonates with you. And you've learned something new. You've developed a new part of your sign, part of your language of signs, rather. So being open to what comes your way is very important, because you never know what you may learn or what you may gain from having that faith. It's very easy. I can't tell you how many times I have seen signs and I'm like, I don't know. I need something better. It's very human. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's just a constant reminder we have to be open. A self-reminder to have that faith and be open. So just for those who are now joining Instagram, the Instagram Live, you can ask any questions about seeing signs from your loved ones, and I'll answer them on this live podcast I'm doing right now. This podcast is going to go out on Wednesday. And for those of you listening on the podcast or on YouTube, apologies for the repetition, hearing me say that to my Instagram folks, but this is live and I'm trying this for the first time. Let's see how it goes. So number one, I'm going to recap number 1 and 2 before I go on to number 3 reason. But number 1 reason that you may not be noticing signs from your loved ones is you're too focused on a specific type of sign. It has to look this way, or has to be in this place. It has to be in this location. Be more open. Number 2, excuse me. Number 2, not having that faith or that openness, and thus disbelieving the signs that you see. Again, being open. And now I realize these 3 points that I'm bringing up in this podcast all have to do with being open. So the third and final reason that you may not be seeing signs from your loved ones or your spirit team is the state of mind from which you're asking for these signs. I have been in situations in my life in which I was feeling really desperate for a sign or an answer. And I asked for them, and I got some signs. But because I was coming from a place of ego and a lot of desperation, I wasn't sure how to interpret those signs, or I would overthink them. So I want to clarify and disclaim by saying that if you're in a moment of feeling desperate or like you really need a sign to be okay, there's nothing wrong with asking for a sign. But when you receive that sign, give yourself time to absorb it. Give yourself a moment to feel what you intuitively feel, the first thing you feel when you see or experience that sign. And then from there, let yourself absorb it and sit with it. Because an example I gave now feels like many episodes ago when I first had my breakup is I asked for signs regarding, how the direction of this relationship that I was in. And I got conflicting signs. What did that mean? And to this day, I still don't know. But I was in such a desperate place that when I received those signs, I don't think I was able to interpret them correctly. And I think there's still more healing I have to do in my journey before I go back and think about what those signs meant. But because I was coming from a place of such hurt and victimization, and this is my own personal experience of my breakup. This is not me projecting onto anybody else's experience. I wasn't sure how to interpret those signs because I was coming at them from this place. So when we are not in this mental place of surrendering, this soulful position of surrendering to the process, then we are trying to have control over these signs. And the way the universe, the way God works is we got to let go. We can ask for what we want. Ask and you shall receive. We can ask for what we want and we will receive those things in the way that are meant to be sent to us. There's a lot of patience that comes with asking for signs. And sometimes we may ask for a sign, and let's say we don't get a sign. Let's say nothing comes our way. I believe that then that is a sign in of itself that there's some self-trust we need to do. It's like when someone sees a psychic 3, 4, 5 times in a month. There's nothing wrong with a psychic giving of their energy, but that's a lot of energy to give. And if you want to play devil's advocate, a psychic that's unethical will just think, oh, I'm getting all this money. Give it to me. Yeah, see me 6 times this month. Not great. But what does that say about the person who's buying the readings, who's trying to see the psychic 6 times in 1 month? They're not applying what they had learned in the last reading, and they don't trust their own intuition or themselves enough to go forth and live life as it's meant to be lived. We are meant to gain insights from different sources around us, psychics, books, movies. We are meant to collect data to help us make informed or inspired decisions in our lives. But if we rely so much on, give me a sign or I won't do this, give me a sign so I can do this, God, the universe, wants us to be co-pilots with them, not just passengers. We're not here just being passengers and they guide the plane. We got to guide the plane with them. We have a life to live. And there's nothing wrong with asking for signs. But if we get too dependent on signs to the point that we don't live life because we're not getting signs, that's pretty extreme, I know. But that's not how the universe, that's not how God wants us to live. That's not how Spirit wants us to live. Spirit wants us to live an empowered life. So when we come from this place of not surrendering to the process of the way life is meant to be lived, not surrendering to the process of how God works in their own timing, the universe works on its own timing. Look, we may ask for a sign and we won't receive it for 3 weeks. We won't receive it for a month. So in the meanwhile, what do? We live for our highest selves. It's the best we can do. It's not easy. It's easier said than done. Oh, I just hit my microphone. Sorry, folks. It's easier said than done. But we owe it to ourselves to trust ourselves. It's like if you have a very good friend that you go to about your work trouble, right? Is it fair to go to that friend every day with your work trouble? That would bog your friend down. Now, I believe God is capable of taking anything from us, capable of holding space for anything we have to throw their way. But then where does our self-reliance go? Where does our self-empowerment come from? So we need to both, it's like, again, it comes back to this co-piloting thing. God, the universe, is there to co-pilot with us, not run the whole thing. Surrender. So to recap the 3 points I brought up: reasons you're not seeing signs from your loved ones, not noticing them. Number 1, to focus on a specific type of sign or the way it shows up. Number 2, disbelieving the signs you're seeing and needing to develop that faith, that openness. And 3, coming at asking for signs and experiencing them, not from a place of surrender, being open, but more from a place of desperation that things in your life can't happen unless you see signs. Joanne said, I planned my dream trip to Italy for 28 days and was having second thoughts because of the cost. The next day I found out we had an offer on land my mom left, and so I took it as a sign she was telling me to go. That's pretty amazing. I think that's a sign too. And 28 days in Italy. Oh my goodness, I wish I could do 28 days in Italy. Y'all know that I love Italy. But that's amazing. I think that's a sign too. And it's really that things are put in place when they happen, when they are meant to happen. Things happen for a reason. And sometimes, we could pass them off as coincidence, like Joanne receiving the offer on land from what her mom left to the family, coinciding with this dream trip she wanted to plan and was having second thoughts because of the cost. Maybe it's coincidence, but that is just, you can't make that stuff up. That's like, what? That's pretty cool. So it's important to let things happen in their own timing. And look, Joanne got an answer the day after she was worried about this trip. It doesn't always happen that quickly. Does not always happen that quickly. And I would have told Joanne to exhibit some patience. Again, it's easier said than done, but we can put the ask out there for the signs, but it's really up to God and the universe to put those things into place. It doesn't mean that our life stops until we get a sign. Then what's the point of experiencing this life, right? Well, this was really fun. I'm glad that I got to try Instagram Live with some Q&As and comments. I quite liked it. Maybe I'll do this more often for topics that I explore on my own. Like I'm going to do a Ouija board episode in a couple weeks, so maybe I'll do it for that one. That one would be a great one to do on Instagram Live at the same time. That would be really cool. But I want to thank you all for joining me. Instagram, I'm staying on for a little while longer. And those of you who are listening on the podcast or on YouTube, I will say adieu to you. Thanks for listening and see you next time. If you have a question or topic you want me to cover on Third Eyesight, head to my website, juanfranciscospirit.com/contact and send a message my way. If you really enjoyed this episode, leave a review wherever you listen. I'd really appreciate it.